Hi, so I've had plenty of time now with Assetto Corsa Competizione to give it a good thrashing, and happy to now share my review of it with you along with my recommendation. So I'm just going to go through the plus points, then the negative points, and then really just wrap everything up at the end. So in terms of plus points, I think for me probably the single biggest one is that they've got it on console at all. This is a title that is well known for being extremely demanding on PC, so for it to appear on current gen consoles that are 6-7 years old is a major undertaking in its own right. After that, we then have the force feedback and handling, which quite simply is the best, most realistic force feedback and handling I've come across yet on console, and I've played every single one of the console-derived sims. And this, it's head and shoulders above anything else on there. The communication you get back through the steering wheel of the exacting track detail, helped by the fact that all the tracks are extremely well laser scanned, is stunning. It really is. As I say, it really does communicate the feel of handling, and this is backed up by the GT3 drivers that have actually tested and played around with ACC and rate it as highly as anything else out there. Often forgotten area that's also a strong plus point is the audio. The audio is simply stunning. It is one of the best sounding sim titles around, full stop. When you do back-to-backs, and I've got a few back-to-back videos on the channel against other titles, and you think another title sounds pretty good, and then it swaps over to the ACC audio and it just blows it out of the water. If you're fortunate enough to be running a tactile rig, as I am, this really comes into play as well, because you can feel the engine, you can feel the thump of the curbs, and the track, it translates incredibly well. It's just a stunning sounding title and really well balanced in the audio. You've then got what was missing from the original Assetto Corsa, and where titles like Project Cars pipped it, which was the weather and the time of day cycle. Both of them are in here now. The dynamic weather and the dynamic time of day really do add to it, and given the fact that GT3 racing, the GT World Series, is effectively a sprint and endurance series, having those in there is absolutely essential. And not only do they look stunning, but they really do add to the atmosphere of the entire thing. And combined with the dynamic track, with it rubbering in, the fact that as it rubbers in, it gets used over a race weekend, you get a rubbered in race line that's really grippy, and the grip increases, but you get marbles collecting off the line, and as the marbles collect off the line, that gets more slippery should you go offline. The fact that when it rains, that changes around, you get more grip off of the rubber, because water on rubber doesn't give you a great deal of grip, but that's only until the marbles clear off, and all of this is, you can feel all of this, you can hear it when you go over the marbles if you misjudge a corner. It's so well done that it really is absolutely astounding and great to see it, and also to be able to feel it and play it. And speaking of atmosphere, you get the lot in here. This is one of those titles that really places you in the series and lives up to your race car driver fantasy, which is why I suspect an awful lot of us play these titles in the first place. And it's up there with the likes of the F1 series or the Dirt series, in really placing you in that role. The entire race weekend is really well put together, with the practice sessions, the qualifying, but it's the races themselves and the duration of the races, and that this is one thing that could be considered to be a negative. To me, it's a positive, is the length of the races. Unless you're going to limit yourself to custom races and set it up for 5-10 minute duration, the shortest length of race you're going to find in this title in ACC is 25 minutes. Just as an example, if you set the career mode to short races, the shortest races are 25 minutes, and the final race, the 24 hours of Spa, you have to do in 4 hours. So it's quite a commitment to undertake the career, let alone the championships as well. So there's a lot going on here. And a lot to really build into that atmosphere. But be aware that if you're not willing to commit to those kind of race lengths, it does limit what's in the title that's playable for you. So that is a bit of a positive and a negative depending on your viewpoint. The setup options are excellent. There's a whole lot going on within the setup side of things for you to play around with. There's a lot in terms of setting your pit strategy in advance, etc. So there's an awful lot in there that just works well. And you've got 3 default setups in there as well that you can use. So you've got a fairly neutral one, you've got an aggressive one, and you've got a wet weather one for those people who don't want to dive into the setup options. One important thing, given what I've mentioned about the length of the races, is you do have mid-game saves, and they're fairly quick and easy to use. Weirdly, you can't save when you're in the pits. You have to save out on track, which is odd, but it works well. You just pause, hit the save button, boom, job done. You can then carry on driving again, or you can quit out and reload. One thing at the moment to watch out for is when you reload, it does mess up your lap deltas, and it can also mess up how much time you've got left being displayed on your particular stint. But one thing to be aware of is the engineer's stint callouts still work as well, so you've got all of that. So there's a lot of positives around ACC on console. What about the negatives? Well, the first one is, obviously, it is a downgrade from the PC. Keep in mind the physics engine, the tyre model, the AI, all of that is intact from the PC. Most of the downgrades have been around the visuals and also the size of the grid. So the maximum grid size is 16 cars, which in some of the endurance races does mean the tracks can get a bit lonely as a result, but in the sprint races it's still good enough, and with no rubber banding you should get a grid that spreads out anyway. A constant wheel to wheel is not the point of endurance racing, so it does work quite well in that regard still, although larger grids would be ideal. There's then the issues with frame rate. So it's 30 frames per second, but it isn't a lot, 30 frames per second. And there are some issues with screen judder, where the frames themselves are kind of unequal length, and that can lead to some weird juddering effects. One interesting thing at the moment is, a Digital Foundry picked up on this, so I strongly advise you to go and dig out that article and take a look at it. At the present moment, on the PS4 versus the PS4 Pro, the base PS4 actually has the higher and more stable frame rate, with the PS4 Pro getting some slight visual upgrades and a reduction in pop-up, but the frame rate takes a hit. I'm hoping that they are going to patch this. The devs have said they are aware of it and they're looking to patch it, so fingers crossed on that. You've then got the accessibility side of things, which it can be an extremely intimidating title to a newcomer. So, for example, your wheel is not set up with almost any bindings to start off with, so you've got to go in and set those all up yourself. I'm not sure about controller, but with a wheel that's definitely the case, which can throw the uninitiated, to say the least. There's also a massive lack of explanation around an awful lot of what goes on. You've got to have a basic understanding of GT3 racing and the blank band stroke World GT series before you go in there. How pit stops work is not explained to you. How the limiters work is not explained to you. The fact that there's a livery editor in there is hidden away. How the traction control and the ABS works, when you should use it, how much you should use in the wet versus the dry, none of this is explained at all. And the same goes for car setups and pit strategy. If you don't tell your pit engineer or set up a strategy to put fuel in your car when you stop for a pit stop, it won't put fuel in your car. That's not an issue on the sprint races, but it is an issue on the endurance races, and something you've got to watch out for. So overall, where do I place ACC? Well, it is a title that has been fairly faithfully created from its PC origins, with some of the issues around accessibility from its PC parent, so to speak. And as a result, for anybody that's new to sim racing, it can be very intimidating and very daunting, which to a degree is a shame, because it is a title that does drive so well and does so much so well as well. They do need to patch in the issues around frame rate and frame judder, if they can, certainly on the higher tier of the current generation, so PS4 Pro, which all of this footage is captured on, by the way. They do need to try and fix that and get that sorted, because there's an absolutely wonderful title here that is hidden behind this layer of inaccessibility and issues around frame rate. But if you've got the time to commit to the length of races and you are looking for what is simply the best handling and the finest force feedback on consoles at the present moment, to my mind, this is a title that you have to have in your library. But if you're looking for something you can just jump into, dive into, have a quick 5-minute blast around and pile on through a career with it helping and explaining stuff to you, this is most definitely not the title. You have to put the legwork in and be prepared to put the seat time into the races to get the most out of it. So there we go. It's, if I could sum it up, only really sim heads should apply for this title. But if you're willing to dive into that pool, there's an absolutely great title awaiting you, and one that's kept me massively occupied over the last week or so, pretty much to the detriment of anything else. And I've been reluctant to put it down to look at F1 2020, even though that's come out. And that's pretty good praise from my book. So hopefully you found this review useful. One final thing to add that is a bonus for it is it's a reduced price even at new, £35 in the UK, which is a great price for a new title, and that is a definite plus point as well. So yeah, as I was saying, hopefully you found this review useful. If you have, please do hit the like button down the bottom. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you want to see more videos like this, please do hit the subscribe button, and if you want to be notified when new videos go up, just hit that bell button as well. Thanks very much for watching. Take care. Bye.